Welcome back to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. I am Greg Banks, your host. Thanks for coming along today. If you've ever come out of the military wondering how your years of service translate into something a civilian recruiter can actually read, this episode's going to answer that directly. Joining me today is Beau Higgins, a retired Marine colonel who served 25 years as an intelligence officer, commanded 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, and then built what became one of the most recognized veteran hiring programs in the country at Amazon. He now serves as Senior Vice President at Opline, an AI-powered platform that matches military experience to civilian job opportunities. We get into what veteran hiring looks like at scale, why your network is your most valuable career asset coming out of service, and exactly what Opline does that a standard resume cannot. All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Great privilege to have on the show today, Beau Higgins. Beau, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, Greg, and excited to share a little bit about what we do and how we can take care of our veterans, man. Good stuff.
This is going to be a 5-hour episode. We've got a podcaster interviewing a podcaster. What could possibly go wrong? Just kidding. Don't hit next yet. A little background on you, Beau. Beau's and I'm not going to say former Marine. I know there's no such animal. You're a retired Marine who served 25 years as an intelligence officer, including command of 1st Reconnaissance Battalion. After retiring from the Marines in 2014, you went on to join Amazon's military affairs team, where you built a scalable veteran hiring program and led military recruiting strategy. And anybody who's been around veteran hiring knows what Amazon does. It's massive. So a lot to dig into there. Today, you serve as a senior vice president at Opline. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but it's an AI-powered platform that translates military experience directly into civilian job qualifications. It's free for vets, mil spouses, student veterans, and nonprofits. We'll unpack some details on that. Companies like Amazon, like Johnson & Johnson, Boeing, are already using Opline to connect with that talent pool. And amongst other things, as I mentioned, you're also a podcaster. We're going to get into some board memberships and stuff you're on. What I know about veterans is the introduction is the hardest part because you're involved in a ton of stuff. But before we dig into your time in the Marines, talk a little bit about Beau before the military. I always like to understand the person before I know about your plan and your path. So tell me a little bit about you growing up and what led you to the Corps.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is a unique place to grow up. You think a lot of things are normal, which you realize later in life may not exactly be normal, with Mardi Gras and costumes and craziness kind of around. So that was part of the upbringing I had. But I would say the thing that's probably most important or most shaped me growing up in New Orleans was going to Jesuit high school. My faith is a big part of who I am, and the idea at Jesuit of being a man for others is something that was been instilled in me at a young age, and I think that's just something that I really appreciated my upbringing there. And as far as joining the Marine Corps and why I did it, I did know what I wanted to do. I went off to college, University of Virginia. I played football for a year and I wasn't very good, but I was really good at the fraternity house. So I found my niche in the fraternity world, and I'm finishing up my senior year of college, and I saw the Marine Corps recruiter hanging out by the library. And my dad had been a Marine, enlisted Marine. I was not alive when he was in the Corps, but he always told stories about his buddies and the good times they had. And he never mentioned any of the bad times. So it sounded like it'd be great. So I thought I would give it a shot,
Nothing quite like a Marine telling a Corps story, right?
100%, 100%. But that influence was there. And like I said, finishing up in college, and I did not want to go back and get my MBA or be a lot of my buddies were going back to school, and I'm like, school was not, I enjoyed my time, but it wasn't because of the classroom necessarily. And thought I would do this Marine Corps thing for 3-4 years and go back and get my MBA. And 25 years later, it was a great run. So yeah, that's a little bit of the kind of precursor for Beau.
So your dad was in the Marines. Did it start in the family before that? Grandfather, anything? It just typically you hear a lot of that in the family tree.
Yeah. Uncles, a lot of family. I mean, even from the Civil War in New Orleans, it has been an influence in our family. So yeah, long history of Higgins. Unfortunately, Higgins in New Orleans is not related to the Higgins boat, which is very popular and was very well used in World War II. That is not our branch of the Higgins family. But yeah, a long legacy of family members serving in the military in my family. It was something we kind of just was always around and always part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really bad about doing these and wait until the end to remember to say this, but thank you for your family service. I know that there's no small value in that. I know the sacrifice cannot effectively be defined. Like you probably look back on it as just like any other job. It's the things you just go and do, but you also can't quantify how many times things that a normal family would do, a non-serving family would do that you just couldn't. because of your time in enlistment. So thank you for what all you've done for our nation. I really
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. As you look back on your time in the Corps, and we're going to unpack a lot of things that you've been doing since then and kind of what you're doing today. But are there 3 or 4 things that just kind of jump off the top of your mind saying, I absolutely know had I not go in the Corps, I either wouldn't be doing this or I'd be doing it a different way. Like those experiences definitely shaped who you are today.
I mean, I think it's, in the Marine Corps, you certainly get to be exposed to a lot of leaders, some great ones and some not so great ones, and I think we learn a lot of lessons from both the good
Mhm.
leaders and the bad leaders that you take to heart, and hopefully put those tools in your toolkit to kind of grow your leadership experience and your ability to help others out. And I think for me, some examples of things that I certainly that are just kind of part and parcel of being in the Marine Corps. It's first and foremost, if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. And that is something that I think is instilled in us as officers in the military, that you take care of your people. That's what you are there for. And I always make the analogy, like, I'm the offensive lineman, right? I want to block. I want to open the hole so my guys can score a touchdown, right? And that may be writing them an award. That may be, helping with their promotion package. That may be, helping them get going to college or go, get, I mean, a million different things you're doing for them, but just take care of them because they are our most precious resource. Those people, those Marines that signed up, most of them, a lot of them at age 17, 18, to get away from what they were what their life and to start this new chapter in their life. They deserve having people that are going to take care of them. And I really try to take that to heart always. And it's something that maybe I had a little bit of that sense before the Marine Corps, but certainly in the Marine Corps, you saw it in spades. And what you saw was if you took care of your people, they would truly take care of you, right? I mean, it's if you make their jobs easy and you take away all the stress or as much as you can to make it be able to focus on the mission at hand, they're going to crush it. They're going to, just do things that you never even thought possible. But it's up to you to be the one that removes those blockers in front of them and makes it easy for them to be successful and to get promoted and to do the things they're going to do. And again, that to me is what it all comes down to at the end of the day, for sure.
Yeah, those are some great takeaways. I can't hear a Marine talk about commanding troops and not quote the great prophet, Commander Colonel Nathan R. Jessup, right? If you ever put your life in another man's hand and asked him to do the same, like there's the war side of preparing your troops and knowing what the command structure and all that stuff looks like. But the life lessons under that maybe in the middle of it, when you're learning those things and you're executing those things, you don't even realize the impact you're having on them or that they're having on you. But looking back, I'm sure there are people under your command that you think back and said, absolutely, my interaction with that particular person changed me forever
Sure.
for whatever reason. So yeah, I love talking to somebody that's been out for a little while, particularly somebody who commanded a large number of troops, because I'm always interested in the effect of people on people.
And I'll tell you, a specific example. I had the honor and the privilege to work for General Dunford, former Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff and former Commandant of the Marine Corps. And at the time, he was a colonel and I was a major, and he was the Chief of Staff for General Mattis. So this is like a dream team staff. Mattis, Dunford, Kelly, all these guys, right? Yeah, it was great. But, I remember going up to, and I was the intel guy. So I had what I thought was pretty important information to share with him to get to General Mattis. And he was talking to a Lance Corporal. And he's just like, give me a minute. I'll get to you, Beau. But like, he's, I mean, so my point of this was he was like, he was so present. No matter if you were the most junior guy or the most senior guy, he just respected that and took the time to really focus on you. It would have been very easy for him to say, oh yeah, I'll talk to you later. I'm going to, he didn't. He just made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room, and that's a amazing trait to just the gift of time. And he several times made time for me when I know his schedule was very busy and he had things that were probably more important than talking to me, but he made the time to invest in those junior folks. And that's something that's just stuck with me forever. And it's sometimes easier said than done, but I think we do it, today when people reach out to me and want to talk about transitioning out of the Marine Corps, things like, or the military in general. You make the time and do it because people did that for me, and I want to make sure I do that for them. I learned that from him, and his example was one that I still look up to as far as being able to, really have good time management, take care of people, and know that they were the most important thing, and time is the most important resource we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I am sure studies have been done about the effectiveness of how military ranks are set up, and you don't bother the person above you unless it's really critical. They know you're not going to come to them unless it's critical. So the trust, even in a subordinate coming to you, what the expectations you set on what interrupting me means, so it better be important kind of thing. That the efficiency of that is incredible. And I've got to go find the name of this guy. I attended the gala that Hiring Heroes USA did here in Atlanta a few months ago, and it opened by a Marine getting on the stage, and he talked about coming up on the 250th anniversary. He talked about the lethality and efficiency of the U.S. military, and in particular, he says there's one reason our military is so lethal is they give every single thing they've got during their time of service because they know on the back end of that there's a road for them to go continue their life. And the minute we as a nation quit doing all we can to make that path as easy and effective and empowering for them to come out of the military whenever they come out and go do something effective, the minute we can't promise that, then we won't have a volunteer military anymore. There's a lot to be said about that. Like, I know when you're lacing up your boots and going to do the stuff you got to do, that's not necessarily the first thought in your mind. But when you go in, it absolutely is. And it was just a great thing that I keep in the back of my mind now. Like, why do this podcast? Why get out and try to highlight the people that are making a difference? That's why, right? I lay down at night trusting the blanket of freedom that they provide, so to speak. But fantastic. So you mentioned you thought you were going to go in and do 4 years. You wound up doing 25. Obviously, you gave all you could and should. What was the reason for the off ramp? What made you decide to get out when you got out?
Yeah, look, I overachieved wildly. If you knew me as a lieutenant or knew me in college, the fact that I made it to the Marine Corps 25 years might surprise a lot of folks. It's one of those things where I had just finished up '06 command, so Colonel Command, and I literally had my change of command in the morning. I retired in the afternoon. And there are a few reasons for it. I mean, a lot of it is, I say this all the time to people, when you know, you know. Like, I can't tell you when you'll be ready to leave the military, but when you know, you'll know. And every person's going to be different. And for me, I think a lot of it was family related, to be honest. My oldest of 5 kids had just finished her freshman year of high school when I was getting ready to retire, or which she decided to retire. And I wanted to give her some stability in high school because I knew what, if I wanted to stay in, it would have meant multiple more moves probably for her. So it just was, a lot of it was family. And I just felt like I had done everything I wanted to do. There was no job that I had, like, I really want to go and be a general because I can do. I'm like, I've done so much more than I ever expected I could possibly do. And I think I was just ready to kind of see what it was like on the civilian side. I had friends of mine that had already gotten out. I had friends of mine from college that were at this point in their lives been doing some really cool things. I'm like, all right, I've done the military thing. What else is there? And if I figured kind of the sooner you start, the better if you want to travel, have a second career. So, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of things culminated in it, but it really came down to my wife and I both being like, okay, when you know, we were ready. It was time. I mean, being in command is great, but it's also can be pretty stressful. And I had deployed again during part of that time. I was like, all right, I'm good. And I felt like I had nothing else left to prove. Leaving on a high note, out of command on my terms, like left 100% on my terms, which was great. And yeah, no regrets about that at all.
That's a good thing to say in military or civilian life. I like to go out on my terms, so totally get that. So I know on the back end of that, or as you headed out, the Amazon wasn't your first stop, and feel free to talk about the stop on the way there. But I definitely want to get into what led you to Amazon. Did you know going in, like the veteran hiring was a thing you were there to do, and talk a little bit about the setting up of that program and whatnot. It's a remarkable story that has stood the test of time. I remember when Amazon came out, I lived south of Atlanta, and they opened a gigantic warehouse down there. The model for Amazon when they started and what they are today are not even remotely similar. And everybody's like, there's a giant warehouse. They'll never fill that thing. I'm like, that can't even cover 2 counties of Amazon orders now. But talk a little bit about that ramp from the Marines to Amazon.
So I have to, but my first stop was at a company called Custom Cable, and we built, fabricated, installed fiber optic cable. And we actually did work in 2 of the Amazon fulfillment centers because everything in those things was automated and robots. So a lot of fiber, and as you might imagine, right? So my boss at the time was like, hey, go figure out how to sell more fiber optic cable to Amazon. I'm like, all right, get on LinkedIn. Who's my buddies at Amazon? And I called my friends over there, and one in particular, Kathleen Carroll, She had been a Marine that I knew and worked with. Her husband had been one of my Marines, and I called her up, and she was in the HR side of Amazon. So I asked her about fiber optic cable. She had no idea about how Amazon bought fiber optic cable, but she did say, "Hey, Beau, I know your personality. Jeff Bezos just made a pledge to hire 25,000 veterans over the next few years. Would you be interested in coming in and helping us build that team out?" So it was, and it's everything. I mean, not every, but the vast majority of jobs you are going to get out there are through your network and timing, and I wasn't looking for a job necessarily, but you'd always be ready for that too, those conversations, and be prepared. And when that opportunity came up, the timing was right from after being at Custom Cable for a couple years. And again, I wasn't looking, but I was looking for something else. But it turned into something I never could have expected. And the opportunity to really build, what truly was and is a world-class program from the ground up. And yeah, amazing that how it worked and how it all came together, and thankful for it for sure. But the network, your network is your net worth, right? I say this all the time. Your network is your net worth. So make sure you maintain your network.
That should be a T-shirt somewhere, man. I like that. Yeah, I just had Pat Hubble with 𝗪𝗪𝗄𝗃 a few weeks ago, and she's been doing interview prep for years, and they just synced up with 4Block, so they're going to multiply. They're going to do some great things, but they're actually adding networking to the skills they offer, because I don't know what you say the word networking. Most veterans break out in a rash. It's like, that just sounds awful. It just feels fake, I guess. And you guys are so used to being direct to the point. But at the end of the day, it's just having conversations that are meaningful and building connections with people, right? There's nothing fancy about it, but it's important.
I have that conversation all the time about, hey, why, what do you think you did in the military? You knew a dude over at the motor pool, and a guy at the armory, and a guy at the chow hall, and that's networking. You can call it what you want, but you knew how to get stuff done. Yeah, you knew a guy over here that could get you to the guy, right? And that's what networking is finding the guy that can help you get whatever it is, whether it's more ammo, more gas, more this, more that, or to be able to talk to somebody at a company is not really any different, and there is some negative connotation about networking, I think, in the military, but it's the same thing you were doing in the military, so it's just having conversations with people and being able to get things done. So yeah.
Civilian transition 101, vocabulary matters,
There you
right?
go.
Just don't freak out by this word. So thinking about that offer, so you went into Amazon. This was grassroots, right? At that time, there was no official program, and you went in to help set that up and get it up and going, right? Do you remember some of the parameters maybe that were tasked to you, or were you just given carte blanche to go figure out what's the best way to go about it?
A lot of it was, I mean, they were kind of doing veteran hiring off the side of a desk. So it was happening, but not in a standardized or measured way as they wanted to. And again, when you had Jeff Bezos say, we want to hire 25,000 people, we had to figure out metrics and data, because that's a very data-driven company, right? So I think what we did, there was a good bit of veteran hiring programs out there, a number of them out there at the time. And we had to figure out which one worked for us, right? So certainly we invested in the Hiring Our Heroes and Skill Bridge programs, apprenticeship programs, military spouse programs, student veteran programs. I mean, we really kind of threw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and tried to figure out what would work for us and where we actually got ROIs. We had some dollars to spend. We didn't have a huge budget, but we had enough where we could try a lot of different things and see, because I think what I'd say is there were a lot of people that promised a lot for us that didn't deliver, and some that did promise and did deliver. We had to figure that out, and what would be the most effective ways for us to build the program out. Obviously, we have the advantage at Amazon of the brand name. So, just going to an event or putting something on LinkedIn, you're going to get some traction because it's Amazon, right? But it's not that easy, because Amazon is not maybe the place that everyone wants to work, or they think they have one impression of what Amazon is and what it's not, So, there was a lot of work that we had to do to kind of shape that and figure out what partners, again, and Hiring Our Heroes is a great one. Hire Heroes USA, ACP, 50 Strong. We had a bunch that we worked with that we really did find value in, others that we did not find value in necessarily, right? And Opline being one of those as well. We used Opline a ton when I was there to help us grow and find and access veteran talent, right? So again, I think Amazon certainly has some advantages because of their name brand and their name recognition. And But I would tell you that the thing that I enjoyed the most about being at Amazon at the time is that because we were willing to take chances and sometimes fail, like we did not get it right all the time. We made mistakes, but being in this space, in the veteran hiring space, one of the great things is that, we're not rivals with the veteran hiring team at,
Right.
Lowe's or Home Depot or J&J or Boeing, right? I certainly understood, and all of us collectively understood that no company can hire every veteran out there. So if we can figure out best practices and how to share them amongst ourselves of building a military spouse program, building a veteran resource group, what are things you did, building, a guard and reserve engagement policy, all these things that may be very hard or challenging by yourself. But if you have a community of people that are all doing it and saying, okay, I tried this and this didn't work. Have you seen this? And you work with them and sharing those best practices. That's one of the most rewarding parts of being in this ecosystem is the willingness to share best practices and to really help, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if you're doing well
Absolutely.
over this company and I can't even hire everybody that's coming to my door, how do I get them to your company too? Because again, at the end of the day, we want to help the veterans. We want to help military
Right.
spouses, right? We want to help the student veterans. And again, it wasn't competition. I guess there's competition, but it was very much collegial, friendly, and sharing of best practices through things like Hiring Our Heroes,
Right.
Veteran Jobs Mission, to name a couple that were great at doing that.
Yeah, that was a couple of conversations I've had with some key people on our journey this far. Was that very fact that there's not competition? And so you just made one point, but I think another point to it. No one company can hire them all, and no program meets every need that any one veteran has. Right? There's no silver bullet you come out with. If you can get in this program, they solve everything. That's impossible, right? Your background and where you want to go and what company you want to land on, what space. Do you want to be in a corporate office? You want to be an entrepreneur? Like there's a billion options there. So it's not a straight path, but learning the tools in your toolbox that you can tap into. I definitely want to move over to Opline, but before I do, apologies, I didn't prep you for this question, but I'm working on getting several episodes lined up with some large corporations who are very mature in their hiring. Amazon obviously being one of those, very mature in their veteran hiring. Dean Robeson, who's up in the executive tier of Salesforce, made this statement: hiring veterans is not philanthropy; it's good business. You can't use that line, but if you look back, and I know you're a little bit biased, but if you look back on seeing all those veterans come in, and again, not from a philanthropic view, but looking back on the impact that bringing that many veterans into an organization, the size and influence of Amazon, how would you state what companies of any size should be able to take away from a journey like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about a couple different things here, and one is just the straight look, a company has to worry about the bottom line. The bottom line matters. It's great that you can wave the flag and apple pie and veterans, rah rah rah, but if
Right.
if you're trying to have a veteran program, and it's going to cost money, you have to have some type of ROI on that investment, right? That's just business. So it's not personal, but it's just business. But having a veteran program makes business sense for a few reasons. One is it's purely financial, right? Work opportunity tax credit. A veteran that you hire is going to give your company a tax credit. So many companies don't know about that. We made millions of dollars at Amazon a year because of those tax credits. And my point, I didn't get all that money back into my Amazon veteran hiring program, but I would tell you a dollar spent on a veteran hiring program versus a dollar spent on a civilian program, your dollar goes more for veterans because of the tax credit. That's just business. That's not, personal. That's not bias. That's just a fact. So it makes sense from a financial standpoint. Now, from a different side, of course, you're going to have good leadership and guys show up on time. Great. But I think the thing that veterans bring to the table that people don't appreciate as much as they maybe should is their problem solving ability, right? I always said it's not just our veterans diverse. They are the most diverse population you can recruit from. If you want to have a diversity program at your company, hire veterans, you'll get diversity. You'll get the most diversity you can ever find, right? But they look at problems, I call it diversity of thought. They just see problems differently. They are used to solving problems with very limited resources, maybe in the middle of nowhere, under challenging circumstances. So they just, if you have, you're trying to brainstorm ideas, veterans, because of the way they solve problems, and they've had to solve problems, and often with limited resources, are going to be a great resource for your team. So that's an intangible that a lot of times you can't put a price tag on. I would also say a third thing is that there is some beauty in that a veteran, especially a more senior guy that's been around a little while, their ability to both lead the hourly workforce, lead down and lead up and being able to engage and lead with their peers. I mean, that leadership piece is not just leadership. It's that it's that intersection of white collar and blue collar that a lot of people may not have. I think that's just what partial of being in the military is, that maybe you take for granted, but you see that not a lot of people have the skill to both lead up, lead down, lead peers. That can be really hard. That's what we gets 101 in the military. So that's a lot there. But I think all those things were things that's why you should invest in a military program.
That actually was part of my own rep to just falling in love with doing anything I can to give back. Was my best friend was a police officer who died in a line of duty. And I saw how those officers showed up for his family every year for the first 10 years after he died. We would have a get together where it happened, and they just showed up. And there's this trust. I've got your sixth thing that you kind of hear through those types of organizations. Man, it's no news headline to look out there today and say a lot of leaders can't be trusted or shouldn't be trusted, maybe is a better way of saying it. But to your point, you can sit them in chaos. They're not going to be swayed by things coming at them, so to speak. We've seen bombs done. I'm not worried about a memo, right? But the level of trust and respect that you get there is crazy. Let's turn towards Opline, because I know there's a lot of overlaps in what goes on there. Tell me a little bit about the background, how you got involved, and what are your ongoings today with it?
Yeah, so Opline, it stands for optimal alignment. Like I said before, we use the tool extensively at Amazon to help us find and hire veteran talent. And you kind of talked about what it does, but basically for a veteran, you enter in your rank, your military specialty, your years of service. It'll ask you some contextually correct questions about it. So we're going to ask a pilot different things than we are, a surface warfare officer, then a maintenance technician, then a radar mech. You're going to get questions asked about not only things you did because of your MOS, but like schools you went to, some intangible things that we'll ask you. And based on that, you kind of hit the save button, and the tool will show you how you align to the job market. Now, I'll tell you, we get about 7,000 new users a month into the tool. And this is a combination of veterans that are direct transitioning, veterans that have been out 1 to 5 years, about a third in each category. Direct transitioning, a third 5 years or less out, a third 5 years or more out. So it works for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're just coming out or you've been out 20 years looking for a new career, right? And again, if you've been out for a while, we're going to ask about your education level and things you've done, because you were a 0311, you were an infantryman in the military. You probably don't want to do that anymore. Now you're a program manager, right?
Yeah.
So it's great you have those skills, and we take that in consideration. We really want to know what you've been doing the last few years and how that's going to translate to the job market. So on the front end, for the user, if you will, for the veteran, the military spouse, the student veteran, it's a great way to figure out how you align the job market. I call it a targeting tool, right? You can see how your skills and what companies would want to be interested in hiring you. On the flip side of it, from the company side of the view, most recruiters, most sourcers are not veterans. They have no idea what 0311 or 18 Delta or 24, whatever nomenclature is of any of the services these days. They don't know what those people are or why they should be hiring. Well, the tool will build for them a skills-based resume that a recruiter or sourcer can see and say, oh, okay, they have 5 years of experience doing quality control, and they have experience doing inventory management. I never would have thought somebody that was in infantry would have those things, but it's going to pull those things out that aren't necessarily a natural correlation. The veteran doesn't even know they've done that. They've done it. They don't think about themselves as having quality control experience or safety experience, but you have tons of it. Everything we do is safety first, right? You have this experience. And again, the tool will make it easy for you to translate your skills, and equally easy for the company to understand what you bring to the table and why they should reach out to you. So that's what the tool does in a nutshell. Again, we charge companies to use it, but it's free for nonprofits. It's free for colleges and universities. It's free for the veteran, the military spouse, the student veteran, and really a great resource again that I got to experience from the user end of the company end, previously, and now out there trying to sell the good news, to share the good word of the tool for anyone that's interested. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Let's talk about the hiring side of it for just a minute, because I totally get everything you're saying on the veteran or mill spouse going into it, because they, and at the end of the day, they've got more skills than most of us could count. They just have absolutely no idea how to translate it into something that a potential employer might want to know. So the ability to do that, I'm sure built in the tool, it understands each branch, what the ranks are, what's involved in those ranks, all those things. That makes sense to me. On the hiring side of it, if say my company were to engage with the tool, tell me what that experience looks like, because I'm having a harder time visualizing what that looks like.
Yeah. So if you're a paying customer of Opline's, right? Every day you're going to get candidates that come into a queue, name, source being, did it come from Opline? Did it come from your company page? Did it come from, that's in tech? Did it come from O2O? Did it come from NC for Me? All these nonprofits we work with, right? So the candidate could have hit the Opline system, one of our sensors in dozens of places, hundreds of places, right? That's the beauty why we give it away for free for anyone that's helping the veteran find a job. So for the company side, you're going to be able to see, again, if you're a Boeing of the world, or maybe a smaller company, right? You're a smaller company that may not have brand recognition, right? So for you, it's a good deal that all these veteran candidates are coming into the queue. Again, 7,000 a month, right? Now, again, if your company is only hiring for, just say, maintenance technicians, we're not going to push into your queue a 𝗪𝘁𝗵 𝗡𝗲𝘀𝘁. We're not going to push you a pilot. But anyone that has maintenance experience will be in that queue of candidates that came in that day, that you then, as a paying customer, the candidate has the ability to go and apply for the job directly. But even if they don't go back to your CRM and apply, you have their data as the recruiter, as a sourcer. So you can see that Joe or Mary came in the system, has skills you want. The only reason they're on Opline is that they are looking for a job, right? You don't come into the tool if you're not looking for a job. If they come to your company page, so again, candidate comes in, they hit the J&J page. They're only going to see J&J jobs if they go to the J&J page, right? If they have the ability to opt in to see all the jobs under the sun if they would like. But if you come in through J&J, you're only going to see J&J initially. If you come into Opline, you're going to see every company under the sun. So thousands of jobs out there. But on the back end, for that company rep, for that recruiter, for that sourcer, we're going to give you a prioritized list. So every day, the best candidate that is the most qualified for you is going to be on top of the list. Like I call it, the LSU wide receiver, the #1 draft pick is going to be on the top of the list. And let's go down the line from there, right? But you have their email, you have their phone number, you have their LinkedIn profile, anything and a skills-based resume. So you can quickly search through the candidates that came in and say, hey, of the candidates that came into my queue today, I only want to find maintenance technicians with a clearance in Maryland. Do that quick search right there. And you knew all those folks are veterans or military spouses and meet the parameters you want and are in the job market. Saves you a massive amount of time from the company side of the house. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody who just heard you say that, saying if you're with a large company, like this, it makes sense 1,000 different ways. But I'm thinking for small and mid-market companies, people who may not ever find you because you're smaller mid-market, you now have the ability to find them.
100%.
We've already spoken to the value of the employee pool we're talking to pull from, but now you effectively get access to some top tier people that may not ever would have found you and applied. So this really shortens the bridge and on-ramp to getting access to some of those people. That's incredible. Incredible. I don't know how it took me so long to hear about it, to be honest with you. So I'm glad we crossed paths.
No.
Before we move on to a couple of the next topics, or anything else about Opline you want to kind of put
No,
out
I
there
think
for people to know?
that pretty much covered that. Again, it's interesting. It was founded by a bunch of angry NCOs, that were defense contractors, and they would win a defense contract and then couldn't find the people. So they built this thing from scratch. So it is truly built by veterans for veterans to solve a problem of matching the labor market, arbitrage of labor market from supply and demand. And that's what this thing is. And it's great. And then,
so to your point, they saw a problem and they solved it.
100%.
This is what they do.
That's what NCOs do, right? And I also work, I'll put a plug in. I also work for the military veteran, the MilVet. And the MilVet does executive recruiting for veterans that want to get into private equity and venture capital. Very different kind of recruiting and very maybe smaller niche market for people like that. But that's my podcast that I host for the MilVet, is in addition to the one for Opline. But I host a podcast for people that are transitioning, want to get into private equity and venture capital. So again, I'm all across the board when it comes to the hiring or helping veterans find the opportunities that match with their skill sets. I think that's really important to try to figure that out. So yeah, good stuff.
There are a lot of things. A one-trick pony is not one of them. Yeah, yeah. Actually, what I was going to turn to is the military veteran. I know you're doing work over there, so thanks for setting that up. And for those listening, we'll put links to all of these resources in the show notes. So if you don't know how to spell Opline or anything like that, we'll certainly have links to that so you can catch up with Beau and all that he's involved with. You also mentioned Toys for Tots in our conversation. I know anybody on planet Earth probably knows what that is, but like any other nonprofit, the mission has to change, right? The world we live in and the rules of the game continuously change. So talk about your involvement there and any highlights you want to give for Toys for Tots.
Yeah, no, I really, I'm super proud of that. I just joined the board for Toys for Tots back in February. And I think to your point, everyone knows, yeah, it's that Marine and dress blues with the box at Christmas time, right? We've all seen the image. We've all donated a toy at some point in lives. But the thing you don't know about Toys for Tots is they do things 24/7, 12 months a year. They are engaging. If there's a flood, a hurricane, a tornado, they are bringing toys to those, distressed communities to engage. They are doing tons of stuff with Native Americans and going to reservations and trying to engage. They have a literacy program. Like there's a lot of stats out there that say if you don't learn how to read by the time you're in 4th grade, your chances of being successful in life aren't that great, right? So not only do we play toys, books is a huge part of Toys for Tots. So usually for a kid, that what they were trying to help out, it's 2 toys and a book. That's what they get, right? So there's back to school programs. I mean, I don't even know it all because I'm kind of new, but I'm always blown away by the amount of things that Toys for Tots is doing year round. And if you're a company out there that wants to sponsor or be involved, whether it's just getting your veteran resource group involved to do good deeds, if you will, or to sponsor because you feel like there's these programs for literacy or programs to help underprivileged children is a good thing, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to connect you up because they're doing some things that they're not your grandfather's Toys for Tots, right? They've really expanded by that mission, and they're doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah. I had never thought about that, to be honest with you. Like nothing, Marines show up, stuff gets done. Like we saw that when they got deployed to cities last year. Stuff just happens. But I said, they don't hire them all in November to do the toys program for Christmas, right? So to know they're there, I didn't begin to even think about what do they do January through November. So really cool to hear that. And certainly we'll put links to that there as well. That's great to know. Another organization that I've been looking into, and then you mentioned you were involved with them, is Travis Mannion Foundation. Tell a little bit about who is Travis, why the foundation exists, and what do you do there?
So Travis Mannion Foundation and Travis Mannion himself, Travis was one of my Marines. So when I was a commanding officer, 1st Recon Battalion, he was a lieutenant, Naval Academy grad, just a fantastic young man and officer, but killed by a sniper in Iraq. And, I was there when he was killed. So super personal to me. The kind of the origin story is very small. It's like, his family wanted to, as many families want to, keep their son's legacy alive in some way, shape, or form. Right. And the first year, Travis was supposed to come back from deployment that he was killed on and run the Marine Corps Marathon with his father. His father ended up running with both their numbers, his and Travis's number, and a group of other Marines ran with him and raised some money. And that was kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? That really got this snowball rolling down the hill. And Travis's mother was the one that really, in the early years, like this was her thing, her baby, right? And it's the charity is built to support families of the fallen, Gold Star families. And they do a lot of great things. They have retreats. They do a great program called Character Does Matter. And I'm a Character Does Matter ambassador, where we go into local schools and talk about character, trying to educate the youth today about, character and the importance of character, like similar to what Travis and what he embodied. They host a series of 9/11 runs. I'm the race director of the run down in New Orleans and was the race director for the one in Tampa for years as well. But again, remembering 9/11 and what this country, when I talk about 9/11, I certainly want people to remember 9/11. There's 25 years of 9/11 coming up this year, but it's hard to believe. But I always talk about 9/12 and what this country felt like on 9/12 and that feeling of unity and community we had that we so often don't these days. But how do we get that back? And I think that Travis Travis Mannion Foundation really focuses on community. That's a big, big piece of it. So for me, it's personal, but they do so many great things. And if you're interested, again, you can always reach out to me. They're nationwide. They're in most big cities. Are going to have a race coming up. They also do honor projects where they're going into local cemeteries and cleaning them up. If you have a service project you want to do, let the foundation know. They will bring people, they'll bring resources. I mean, they do stuff like all over, from big to small. There's nothing outside the scope of what they may be able to do and engage in the community. And it's just a wonderful organization to be a part of. And I'm proud to be part of it.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that. Again, it's one of the reasons we do the podcast was you see commercials, you see all these things. I spend a lot of my time researching organizations like this. But even in that, I know very, very little of any of the things you just described about Toys for Tots or Travis Mannion. But when somebody goes through that, and I haven't been through it, thank God. I lost my friend who's a police officer, and I saw what his family did. But what you find is a group of people that were impacted by that person that are moved with passion that cannot be measured. But what's always very, very difficult is turning that passion into a purpose. How do we take this undefined just void of, I got to go do something, define something there that there's a need for, that meets a need, that has an impact, and then get people on board with it. And so when you see an organization that's kind of stood the test of time, so to speak, if you can get to that first 2, 3, 4 years, get a reputation, get people involved, right? It's going to be easy for a spouse or a parent or a sibling to get there, but that's not going to carry it in perpetuity. And you don't want this to be a 5-year project. You want it to really carry on. So I look forward to sitting down with them. I have connected with them, but look forward to talking about that. Beau, have we missed anything that you're involved with? I feel like the show notes might be the longest list ever here of things to follow up on. I know you've got some things coming up, and I want to close with that, but are there any other programs that you want to highlight while you're here that you're involved with? Or have been?
No, I think that's it. Again, I love what I do. I love being able to give back and again, help those veterans that are transitioning out. 'Cause it can be scary. Transition can be scary. I get it. I see it all the time. I talk to folks all the time that are frustrated. They're applying online. They're not getting anywhere. They don't know what to do. And, they'll charge a machine gun nest, but they transition's scary, right? That's not, but this is, right? So how do you help those folks and give back? Like there's so many leaders I talked about before, like those leaders that helped me out. And so none of us are here without the help of others. So how do we give back a little bit of our time, of our network, of whatever it may be? But no, nothing else. And again, thanks for having me on the show today. It's great.
Beau, it's truly my pleasure, my honor. It never ceases to amaze me for those who go and give and give and give to the nation in their time in uniform. Inevitably, every person who's ever served, I could interview because it's always, they go do more. They go do more. And it's always effective. It's always cut through the crap and just getting stuff done. So it's truly an honor of mine to get to meet you and to share a little bit about this. Is there anything coming up you want to talk? I know you mentioned the run in New Orleans, but any events coming up?
Yeah, well, there'll be a series of runs all over the country. The one I'm hosting or I'm the race director for is in New Orleans on 12 September on Audubon Park. We'll have the Marine Corps band out there, and it's always a good time. Again, it's a great way. We'll talk a little bit about Travis and his legacy. We'll talk about 9/11, and we'll talk about that community engagement. And this is my pitch is, this year in particular, 25 years since 9/11. 25 years of kids weren't born on 9/11. So I feel like we have a duty, a patriotic duty to keep that conversation alive. I certainly do for my kids that weren't born, but anyone that's in college or high school or grade school was not around for that time and didn't feel what this country felt then. So I think it's important to do something, whether you go out for a 9/11 run or you volunteer or walk or do something to remember that day and to share your story, with your kids, with your nieces, nephews, friends, neighbors, something. I think it's just an important story that we all have a piece of in this community collectively. It's our, where were you when Kennedy was shot moment that we weren't there for. Right. This is our generation's version of that, right? And I think it's important to share that. And because again, I think 25 years out, people are going to start forgetting, and it's hard to believe, but that's just the nature. It's not the current thing, right? So
time does not slow down, does it?
It's our duty to do that and share that. So, yeah.
We'll close with this. You bring up a really good point. I do remember 9/11. So many things that make me think of it, but I also remember 9/12. I remember seeing TV that night. I remember seeing every single living congressman on the steps in Washington together, and people went in line to give blood and do things. And I mean, the fires were still burning at Ground Zero, obviously for a long, long time after that. But one of the most beautiful moments in our nation's history in my opinion. It proves, 09-10, I'm sure we were very, very, very divided. There was the same passion that there is today dividing us. But by God, there are so many more things that unite us. And that day we were united like we haven't been in 150 years. There was a purpose behind what we were trying to do. And people said, I'm going to put my differences aside and let's do the right thing for our nation. So I'm hoping that's a takeaway from this episode for people. Somebody needs to make a freaking movie about that day and start with the opening scene of them standing on those steps. It was an amazing day. I know there's a lot of great organizations out there that highlight some of those. Creative Vets was one of the ones. I didn't know George W. Bush was an artist, but he's painted some pictures of stuff. And Richard Casper, who founded Creative Vets, his story, I want to have him on. His story of, again, he didn't set out to start a VSO. He was in his own personal hell, just trying to find a way through it. And an art teacher said, why don't you go to college and take some art classes? What the frick? I ain't got to talk to people in art class. Let's go do that. And out of that came something that healed him. And he found that was a formula that broke through veterans with PTSD, that nothing else in the world had touched them. And so just so many great, great things out there. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing, to get the word out. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to have to follow up to make sure I've got all the right links on some of these organizations, I think, because it's a good list. But really, thank you for coming on. Thank you for what your family's done. God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate being on the show today, man. And keep up doing what you're doing, getting the word out there. That's what it's all about. It takes a village. So thank you.
Sure does. You got it. Take care. Well, thank you for listening to Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Beau, thank you for 25 years of service and for the way you carry it forward. What stayed with me was a story about General Dunford pausing a conversation with the major, the intel officer standing right there to finish his time with Lance Corporal. You watched that, you took it, and you made it your own. That's the kind of leadership that does not retire. I also want to honor what you shared about Travis Mannion. He was your lieutenant. He was killed under your command. You carry that and you turn it into runs, into character programs in schools, into communities gathering on September 12th to remember what this country felt like when it was one. That matters, and so does the work of the Travis Mannion Foundation. If you're a veteran, a military spouse, or a student veteran still trying to figure out how your service translates, go find Opline. It's free. It reads the language of the military and turns it into something the civilian job market can actually see. 7,000 people a month are already using it. Go be one of them. Subscribe wherever you listen and leave us a review. It's one of the best things you can do to help this show reach the people who need it. Show notes are in the description. Questions, you can reach us at SeriousTalk@SeriousSolutions.com. A sincere thank you goes out to Jason Fowler for allowing use of his song, Mystery Road. Beau said your network is your net worth. After 25 years of building one while serving this country, he's living proof it's not just a line, it's a strategy. Go build your network.